So wait, you want me to establish a dynasty?
Yeah, the Robison Dynasty. They'll be talking about it for hundreds of years to come.
I love this. I really love this. All right, Mike Morton, Matt Robison, financial life planning. I couldn't love this idea more. Who would want there's the Ming Dynasty. There's the I don't know my Chinese history as well as I should. Really? I get to.
Yeah.
Well, so first of all, I gotta say, I hope people will hang on before we find out about how we all get to establish dynasties, which I love. I will tell you that at the very end, you've got a quote that I adore in our One Thing segment, and I want to hear more about this from you. But let's get to the main course here, dude. Really? I get to establish a dynasty?
Yeah, and it's not even that hard. In fact, you've already started establishing your dynasty, Matt. It's going to be great. The Robison Jones Dynasty. We're going to be talking about it for generations.
All right. Before we get into it, can we do a little how's it going minute? Because I've got I think we'll be able to return to this. We're recording this at the beginning of the summer, right? It's the beginning of the summer. And I think this is a challenge that a lot of parents can relate to. We all want to imbue a sense of responsibility, contributing to a household, grit and hard work, earning, based on the work effort that you put in, and also a sense of giving back. Anyway, the point is it's summer.
No, I'm just trying to raise lazy kids, Matt. It's going really well. It's going great.
I think you're confusing what you want to do and what's happening. Right.
Okay.
But I'm having the same problem you are, right? Like many of us, we have lofty aspirations that we're not quite reaching.
Right.
So I'm going to give some credit to my wife. She is spearheading a new initiative this summer where every day up on our big chalkboard in our kitchen, we're going to put 3 items for each of our 3 kids. Each kid gets 3 items. They're going to have something they have to do for their brain, like reading during the summer, something they have to do that's like a chore to contribute to the household, and something that they have to do that's something for someone else, right? Like, they have to do a chore for grandma. They have to do a service thing. And my wife is taking this on. That's all I have to say. I myself am on the edge of my seat to find out how this goes. But we are going to
Wait, aren't you going to be participating in making sure this happens?
I'm going to be participating in it, but I just, do you feel like most people fall into this thing where like they try a new initiative and they put some effort into it, but it doesn't really come together?
No, because you have to spend time and effort. It's max of effort.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Well, I'll tell you
I
what.
want to know if you can combine like 1 and 3 or 2 and 3. Can I read a book for my sibling?
Yes.
Or can I
you can
do a chore for someone else?
Yes. You can. You can achieve efficiencies. I don't know. We haven't fleshed out every last detail.
It's coming.
Well,
how can I get around 1 and 2 and 3?
Every day. That's going to be the struggle, right? It's going to be like, well, I thought about, so that was for my brain. I thought about doing something for someone else.
There you go. I thought about the chore for my sibling. I'm done.
We will check back in on this. We will check back in and see how it's
on
going.
the new initiative.
Meanwhile, let's get back to the Robison Dynasty, which is not just for me. You're saying everyone can establish a dynasty.
A dynasty. So this is an educational dynasty. It's a really cool concept. You can use your 529s. We've talked about 529s as those educational accounts for your kids. These have so many different rules and benefits. It's pretty fascinating what you can do with these 529 accounts. Most people, as you know, it's like, oh, I've got a kid. I want to save some money for college. Oh, not that I have money to save. Maybe when they were little, you had some money to save, but now Matt and I know there's no money left to save. But hey, I want to put it into a 529. Maybe you get 10 or 20,000 in there, ahead of college costs. And then when college comes, we spend the money out of the 529 account. It's cool. You get some tax savings. So that's how people typically use these. But they have all kinds of weird rules that are just not usual for accounts. Like you can change the beneficiaries. You can change the account owners, which is just really bizarre. And so you can combine these rules, and that you can also put hundreds of thousands of dollars into these things. There's really like pretty big caps. Of course, they can be invested. So when you start looking at these rules, what you can do, Matt, is you can put in money and pre-fund not only your kids' college, maybe your nieces and nephews' college, but also your grandkids' college and maybe their kids. I mean, these things can go forever. And so it's a cheap way, an easy way to start a foundational account that can fund education for generations and generations. And we call this thing the Dynasty 529.
Oh my gosh. I love this. Look, I mean, it also kind of runs smack dab into the problem that many of us face, which is I don't think I can save enough for college to start with. So fair enough, understood. That applies to me. That probably applies to a lot of people. But what really grabbed me about what you just said is this idea of changing your thinking, because I think about 529s as a single purpose. It's like a single serving thing. You know, it's like, I'm going to save this amount, as much as I can for this kid. But if you took a really long-term view about it of, well, hold on, I'm not going to do that. This is an account I'm going to set up for a whole different purpose. This is like for my family and eventual heirs forever. We're going to start putting away money. It's a whole different thing. And if you find yourself able to do that, it's pretty amazing.
I think that's one of the biggest things to take away from this episode is flipping your mindset to that one-time use, because that's how we all think, like, oh, for my kid and they're going to college and there's so many things that are important around that, to generational thinking and say, this is a tool that we believe as a family in education. We can all contribute and support future education for generations in such a way because it's tax-free and it grows tax-free. And so it's that compounding. Like we talked about Warren Buffett. How did he make 98% of his wealth came after the age of 65? So if you can flip your thinking to generational thinking and power these types of accounts, it's extremely powerful.
So do you have any like examples of people who find themselves? I mean, the one that jumps to mind for me is sort of maybe it's the most obvious. It's the grandparent who, might have an estate eventually one day. But, since you can put funds into these 529 accounts, it's a great way, this tax-free way to pass on a tremendous amount of assets to your heirs. So that's one that kind of occurs to me. But
no, that's exactly right. So I've got some friends that they have over $800,000 in 529 accounts. And they have only 2 kids, age 12 and 9. And they already have over 800,000 in 529 accounts. That has come from them, but it's also come from their parents, right? Both sets of grandparents for the kids, and it is exactly that, Matt. That there's lots of families that have grown wealth and they're passing it on in various ways, and this is a fantastic tool to set up a way of passing on hundreds of thousands of dollars that can grow tax-free forever. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Right. I mean, well, so we're not all in the kind of the university, stamp, but it does. I like the example because it does suggest that there are sneakier ways than would initially occur to me that you might find yourself in a situation of, what if I just changed my mindset about this kind of account and think about it as, like I'm setting up a dynasty. I have a question. Were you a Dynasty or a Dallas guy?
Neither.
Falcon Crest?
Days of Our Lives.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
No way. I was all Dallas all the way. I mean, who shot JR?
Right.
I was actually, what is weird is that summer that happened, I was living in Dallas. I was like 6 years old, so it was very on the nose. Wow. No one knows what we're talking about. All right, we've lost everyone under the age of 50, but that's cool. That's fine. Right. So I mean, there are these. It goes back to the change of mindset, right? Like Now let me ask this: your friends. I'm being tongue in cheek about this, but I'm kind of being a tiny bit serious illustratively. You said that you can change the owner of accounts. Tell me more about that, because like your friends, if they suddenly decide, what I really care about is Matt Robison's interests, could they make me the owner, or it has to be a family member?
No, they can make you the owner.
That's insane.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I feel like we buried the lead here. So there are normally IRS tax and gift rules, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're telling me that this is a workaround, that if you wanted to give, your friends wanted to give me $800,000 tax-free, they could do it in this way.
Yeah. Yes and no. Oh. You could be the account owner. Right? You said, could you change the account owner to Matt Robison? Yes, you can, but it's not your money. The money is for the beneficiary, right? So that's like changing the trustee. Now, can you then change the beneficiary to Matt Robison? Absolutely. You're the trustee. You're the owner of the account. You can change the beneficiary.
Wow.
Now, that's when the gift taxing comes in. All right. So it's the beneficiary piece where there are gift tax rules. You're not avoiding gift taxing, all right, with the 529 accounts. But it's a murky situation, Matt, because like I just said, where else can you change the account owner of an account to just a friend, a random person? Yeah, 529s you can.
Now, maybe we should just quickly, I feel like we've gotten pretty far along before we did this, but maybe we should just remind ourselves and everybody, just like the basic 101 on 529s.
Yeah, it's really simple. There. Yeah, everybody knows, but yeah, it's an account. You open them up with a couple of clicks, like any other online account. You can contribute money to a 529. Anyone can contribute into that account. There's some state tax deductions that you might get depending on what state you live in and where the 529 account is opened. So whoever opened it is the owner. You have a beneficiary of the account. The balance in the account, $10,000 can be invested, stocks, bonds, that kind of thing. And then when you use the money, so it grows tax-free. And then when you pull the money out, withdraw it to spend it, as long as it's for a qualified educational expense, it comes out tax-free. So whatever contributions get invested, they grow. They come out for the beneficiary, right? There's a beneficiary. You pull the money out to pay the college, pay the books, costs, pay all kinds of stuff. It's all tax-free.
I think in a future episode, we should have a grudge match, like best account out there.
Yeah. And I thought we did that. Did we have
go head to head? Did we ever do that?
We need to.
I feel like 529s. There's a lot going for them.
Yeah,
you like HSAs.
I like HSAs, but you're right with this. With this episode, the 529, man, it's pretty good.
It's really something. We were also talking about, just to remind people, if this whole idea of establishing kind of like intergenerational dynasties appeals to you. You were saying in a recent episode that you can also do this when it comes to charitable giving, that there's another type of account you can set up that can become a family foundation. And this is becoming increasingly popular as well.
Yeah, the donor advised fund, again, that would be great in the brackets. Man, that would be a big contender, that account. So it's pretty good, but that's for charitable giving, right? So
right.
You can't change it to Matt Robison, unfortunately.
I'm a charity man. I think everything that people have heard from me establishes that.
I'll give you a tip on this. You have a big windfall, right? Say you sell a company or you win the lottery. You could put a whole bunch of money in a donor advised fund, take the charitable deduction. Then down the road, you start your own nonprofit. And now you can use the money to fund your nonprofit. You can pay your salary as the head of the nonprofit.
Oh my gosh.
How's that?
Wow. Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Hey, it's moving up in the bracket.
The only thing that I'm missing here in this situation, it is moving up in the bracket, is the windfall. I need that piece. Part. I want the money first, and then we'll figure out all the clever schemes. But no, I do think that what you're laying out here with, I don't know, it just drags me back to that first idea of, I really do think of 529s as It's like from the movie Fight Club, like a single serving. I get a single serving thing on the airplane. It's like a single serving friend. This is a single serving account in my mind. It's like,
yeah.
Although you did explain to me one of the nice features, because you can change the beneficiary, is I have separate 529 accounts for my kids. And you explained, don't fuss too much about whether you're overfunding or underfunding one kid versus another, because you can move that around. So that is another really nice feature.
Yeah. So I still recommend, you've got multiple kids, go ahead and open up multiple accounts, kind of one for one, put the money in, as best as you want to even it out. Or if you like one kid more, you can put in, twice the amount for that kid. But don't worry about it too much. Yeah. As you just said. And then Matt, that's a great example of shifting to this generational thinking. A lot of people come with the worry of, what if I, oversave in my 529? And yeah, we want to be careful. But if you, again, value education, if your family values education, I wouldn't stress about it too much. Even if you end up with an extra $50,000, $100,000, hey, if you roll that to the next generation, it's going to double and triple, quadruple, by the time your grandkids are growing up. And now you've got 400,000, ready to help out your kids' kids. And it's really that kind of thinking with this tax-free growth, compounding, time horizon combination that is extremely powerful.
That's what jumped out to me when we talked about donor advised funds, was this idea that you're not uber wealthy. You're not like one of the ultra rich where you're really going to create a foundation. It's
right.
Like, we are the Ford Foundation. But you can do essentially the exact same thing with a donor advised fund if you have, a medium high level of assets and you're trying to figure out what to do with them. And if one of your values is charitable giving, and this is a family-wide enterprise, you can create an ongoing legacy through your family through this donor advised fund.
And especially, I was going to say, with your parents, you talked about before, like the grandparents and passing down wealth, and how that's going to happen. You could start earlier and start contributing to 529s, getting that tax-free growth. And you don't know, it doesn't have to be specific. Change your mindset to like, oh, it's for this grandchild or this grandchild. It's like, no, we can just start them up and keep it rolling.
Well, and that's what kind of takes me back to this. Now, look, we all know that things within families can get complicated, but if you are starting to think about the idea of, you are a grandparent and you have multiple grandkids, this idea, if you have the assets of setting it up and having this ability to move it around, essentially it's a inside your family educational foundation, that is very appealing.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's tons of things you can do with these 529 accounts, right? So as they grow, they grow tax free. You can use them for not only college expenses, that's the typical one, but you can use them for K through 12. We're going to, private school, K through 12 in there. You can use money for that. You could pay back student loans. And now they've got the new rules that you can roll some of the money into Roth IRAs.
Right. That's the escape hatch thing.
Yeah, the escape hatch. So, you got the 22-year-old just graduated, starting their job, and there's some leftover money in the 529, the Dynasty 529. Great. Let's boost their retirement savings with a little bit from that 529. And there's no requirements to distribute the money from a 529. So unlike a lot of accounts that have requirements, hey, you got to get the money out, or if you pass away, your next generation's got to pull the money out of that account into their own accounts. That's not true for 529s. It can sit in there indefinitely. There's no requirements to distribute it.
Right. That's that difference with the IRA that we talked about a few episodes ago, where, you've got to do minimum distributions, and here you really do have this dynasty possibility. What are the downsides? Like, are there things, pitfalls people should be aware of?
Yeah, the rules could always change in the future. That's the big one. So you're trying to set up this thing that's going to last generations, right? It's going to last 100 years. Who knows what, changes in the laws are going to happen. So the thing I just mentioned about using the Roth IRA, putting it into the Roth IRAs, that's very new. They could go the other way, like kind of switch it up and say, oh, you do have to distribute funds. You can't, have them, they might put a cap on the amount that can be in them or something. So rules could always change in the future. That's the one that I'd worry about the most.
But of course, I love to think about, like, what's your real downside risk here? It's like, you still own the money, so like, even if there's a tax penalty, which is not ideal, but like, it's there. It just becomes slightly less efficient. And with, the existing rules with the escape hatch, with the Roth IRA and, all of if there are rule changes at some point, you're going to have a window. You're probably going to have a grandfathering, and you're going to have some time to work around it. So it just feels ultra low risk to me.
That's usually the way these things work, but it's worth pointing out, like the rules can change. But typically it's not going to be it's usually be in your favor. And if there is anything, there's grandfather and stuff like that. The other big thing to be aware of is what you brought up is gift taxing. All right. So it's very important when you're changing beneficiaries on accounts, or you can move money from one 529 to another. Okay. So you can open up a new 529, new owner, new beneficiary, and you can transfer $100,000, from one 529 into another 529. But when you do any of those contributions or transfers or changing beneficiaries, that is when you might have gift taxing. So you do need to be aware of gift taxing rules.
How significant is that? I'm guessing that doesn't wipe out the whole idea here of kind of like this Dynasty 529. It's just a factor that you'll have to work around with a financial planner or a tax preparer.
That's right. Yeah, no, it doesn't. Not at all. It's if you're going to do it anyway, if you're going to pay for someone else's education, you're going to have gift taxing. Okay?
Right.
So you just need to be kind of aware of that. And there's all kinds of ways to manage it, make it non-existent, all kinds of things you can do. But just be aware that you can't always just simply transfer $100,000 from one account to another. You have to be aware that could have gift taxing consequences.
So the bottom line sounds like to me, 529s, they're just one of these very ultra low or no regrets type accounts where most of the time for most people, you are in kind of like the single serve universe, right? Where you're trying to save for this kid, for this school, and that's what's going to happen. But it's just really nice to know that with this kind of tweak in mindset, if you find yourself in this situation where you have the assets, there's really a lot that you can do.
There's a lot you can do. I would really keep it in the toolkit with that thinking in mind, because even if you can only afford to put away a couple $1,000s a year, you could still do that, right? So Matt, like when our kids eventually get out of college, if they get into college and get out of college, we could still continue if we had the means, like, I'll put in, a few $1,000s a year, for the just start the grandkids, even though your own kids have just graduated college. You could start, continue that. You get state tax deductions in some states, so you could, get a little bit of tax benefit. So shift your mindset to a tool that you can really use to start one of these things.
Well, with a long time horizon, right? Like, a few $100s, a few $1,000s a year, long time compound growth. That can be absolutely huge, which connects to our one thing segment. You've got a quote, right?
Look at you.
Yeah, see what I did there? All right. I'm going to sprain a shoulder.
That's why I pay you the big bucks as my host. Thanks so much for being my host, Matt.
The big buck. But you know what? Even a little bit can really help. All right, so give us the quote.
All right, the quote is, "Slow jog is better than no jog." Slow jog is better than no jog. This is from Carl Mitzer. I was watching a podcast, YouTube video, and he had this quote. We were talking about 100-mile ultra marathons, and I just finished a 50-miler a week ago. And his point was, any kind of slow jog is better than no jog. The story was, actually the co-host, his story was, hey, I just finished my first 100-miler. In the last 5 miles, so from miles 95 to 100, he had a friend join him, pacer, and they were just walking. I mean, he was just walking. This is the last 5 miles, mile 95. You're just walking the death march. And his pacer was like, hey, can you jog a little bit? And he's like, I guess I could try. And so they just start shuffling super slow. And he starts picking up the pace just a little bit. And now he's kind of jogging, like very slow jog, but jogging. And he passed 18 people in the last 5 miles. Just by having a slow jog. He passed 18 people in the last 5 miles of a race. So Slow jog is better than no jog.
I can think of so many examples where that kind of mentality really works. I think I've told you before, like I'm a horrible golfer, which is why I quit like 15 years ago. But I discovered, on any shot, there was a non-zero chance that I was going to skitter it along the ground. But there's a huge difference between skittering it 20 yards forward and 20 yards out to the side, because it means you get to change clubs and you have a different angle, and you're just better off. But there's a million examples of this. It's true. Like we tend to undervalue little increments of progress, and not just because of the mental reinforcement of you feel good about yourself, and it in sense, in your example, it's like, well, that this built to more than like a slow jog over, and that's one thing that can happen. But even if all you accomplish is the slowest of slow jogs, you're making more progress, and it can make a big difference.
Makes a big difference, especially when you have compounding.
And especially if you are part of an intergenerational dynasty, like I apparently could be, and any of you could be too. All right. I think that about takes us to the end. For Mike Morton, I'm Matt Robison. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for joining us on Financial Life Planning. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to and rate the podcast on Apple iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It makes a massive difference. If you have a comment or question, please email me, mike@mortonfa.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered for investment advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording. Such opinions are subject to change. I cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the data presented here.